Have you ever found yourself absolutely exhausted from performing a version of yourself that you don't fully recognize just to fit into workplace or social norms? If so, you're not alone. Many autistics and ADHDers engage in what's known as masking or hiding our authentic traits to meet external expectations. Hi, I'm Essie. I'm an autistic and ADHD therapist. Today, we're going to explore why we mask, the toll it can take, and how we can move toward genuine self-expression without sacrificing our well-being. Masking is essentially a survival strategy. For many neurodivergents, it feels like the only way to belong in social spaces or professional environments that aren't designed with us in mind. But constantly monitoring your behavior, tone of voice, and even body language can leave you drained, anxious, and sometimes unsure of who you really are beneath the performance. Although masking is widely used as a catch-all term, it actually encompasses three related but distinct behaviors: masking, camouflaging, and compensating. Understanding these subtle differences can help us pinpoint what's driving our social or workplace performance and find healthier ways to cope. Masking involves actively suppressing traits, mannerisms, or behaviors that might be viewed by neurotypicals as unusual. For example, you might avoid stimming in front of others or force yourself to maintain unwavering eye contact, even if it feels uncomfortable. We mask to blend in or avoid criticism in environments that do not accommodate or understand neurodivergent behaviors. Camouflaging, on the other hand, is imitating or adopting neurotypical social behaviors to pass more seamlessly in social settings. For example, using rehearsed small talk scripts, mirroring someone's gestures or tone, or practicing social smiles to appear engaged. We camouflage to fit into social norms or meet unspoken expectations about how one should communicate, often to reduce the chance of negative judgment by neurotypicals. Compensating involves finding ways to cover or make up for perceived deficits. Rather than hiding a behavior, you develop workarounds that help you achieve the same outcome as someone without your challenges. For example, if you struggle with auditory processing, you might rely heavily on note-taking apps, or if you have trouble reading facial expressions, you might memorize specific cues to interpret them more systematically. We compensate to function effectively in environments that aren't designed with neurodivergent needs in mind, often a necessity to keep up at work, school, or in social situations. While these three strategies might look different, they share a common root: the desire to be understood, accepted, and successful in a world that often overlooks or misunderstands neurodiversity. So why do we do these behaviors as neurodivergents? In social psychology, we talk about core social motives like belonging, understanding, and trust. These motives are powerful drivers of our behaviors. If you're autistic or ADHD, you might feel an even stronger pull to blend in because you faced misunderstanding or exclusion in the past. Masking can feel like a shield. If others don't see your stimming or hear your impulsive comments, then maybe you'll avoid negative judgments. But behind that shield, you may be contorting yourself into someone you're not. Our sense of self or self-concept evolves over time based on how we see ourselves and how others respond to us. When we mask continuously, our internal compass can get muddled. We might ask, am I acting this way because it's genuinely me, or because I'm trying to please people around me? Over time, this disconnect can create stress, confusion, and even resentment, especially if masking leads to a feeling that your true self is never fully acknowledged or validated. When our masked persona and authentic self feel at odds, it can pave the way for imposter syndrome, the nagging worry that we've only succeeded because we fooled everyone. If you're constantly shifting your behavior to meet external expectations, any accomplishments you achieve might feel unearned. They're praising the polished version of me, not the real me. This disconnection can deepen the sense of being an imposter in your own life, magnifying self-doubt and anxiety. Over time, imposter syndrome and masking feed into each other, creating a cycle where you feel compelled to keep up the facade to avoid the fear of being exposed. The antidote lies in recognizing your genuine capabilities and allowing yourself to be human, acknowledging both strengths and vulnerabilities without assuming they invalidate your worth. By gradually reducing the extent of your masking, you can begin to align your achievements with the authentic you, ultimately breaking free from the grip of imposter syndrome. A helpful way to understand why this alignment is so important is through self-discrepancy theory, which highlights the gap between who we are, our actual self, and who we wish we could be, our ideal self. For many neurodivergents, our ideal self might be someone who can be authentic without fear, someone who stims openly or needs fewer social scripts, but our actual self may be stuck in a perpetual cycle of masking, fearing judgment if we drop our guard. The gap between these selves can lead to anxiety, guilt, or frustration, making our mental health suffer in the long run. It's no surprise that masking can affect our self-esteem. If we only show a curated, socially acceptable facade, positive feedback feels shallow or unearned, like people aren't praising the real you. On the flip side, we might blame ourselves whenever we slip up or reveal a trait we've tried to hide. When there is a persistent gap between who we are, our actual self, and the person we wish we could be, our ideal self, an internal voice can turn downright tyrannical. Many neurodivergents report an inner critic that amplifies every perceived shortcoming. It might say things like, "You're not trying hard enough," or "You'll never be as social or adaptable as you should be." The more we cling to an image of an ideal self that feels impossible to reach, someone who doesn't stim, never loses focus, or always has the right words at the right time, the louder and harsher this voice becomes. Over time, this relentless critic chips away at our self-worth, filing any slip-up or hint of awkwardness with guilt or shame. Over time, this relentless critic chips away at our self-worth, interpreting any small slip-up or hint of awkwardness as something worthy of guilt or shame. It also fuels the cycle of masking by insisting that every natural trait we'd like to reveal, an animated hand gesture, an unfiltered comment about one of our passions, needs to be suppressed for fear of judgment. Ironically, while we mask to appease that inner voice, it's never truly satisfied, often leading to even harsher self-accusations of faking it or not belonging. Recognizing this inner critic for what it is, a distorted echo of societal standards, rather than an objective truth, is a crucial step towards self-compassion. Challenging its rigid demands and reframing our self-expectations can help us bridge the gap between the actual and ideal self in a healthier, more empowering way. Self-monitoring describes how much we adjust our behaviors to match social expectations. High self-monitors are adept at reading social cues, which can be useful in professional settings. But for neurodivergents, high self-monitoring often means overthinking every move. Am I flapping my hands too much? Did I talk about my passions for too long? While these questions can help navigate neurotypical spaces, they also drain our mental energy. It's the double-edged sword of being socially aware, but constantly worried about crossing an invisible line and triggering the tyrannical inner critic. Think of self-regulation like a battery that gets drained throughout the day. When you're masking, you're pouring energy into tasks like scripting conversations, suppressing stims, or adjusting your facial expressions. Neurotypical peers may not understand how mentally taxing this is. By the time you get home, your battery might be at zero. You have no capacity left for basic tasks or social interactions. This state is often linked to ego depletion, a concept describing the fatigue that sets in after prolonged self-control efforts. For many autistics and ADHDers, rejection sensitivity can heighten the urge to mask. If you've been rejected in the past, whether teased at school or overlooked at work, you might become hypervigilant about preventing it from happening again. Rejection-sensitive dysphoria, RSD, is a heightened emotional response to real or perceived rejection or criticism, often experienced by neurodivergents. When you have RSD, The fear of being judged or disliked isn't just a mild worry. It can trigger a wave of overwhelming emotions that feel impossible to manage. This might show up as sudden, intense anxiety, deep embarrassment, or even anger toward yourself or others. Because the emotional spike can be so severe, people with RSD often do everything in their power to avoid scenarios where rejection might occur, fueling the cycle of masking. While masking might feel protective in the moment, the long-term cost is steep. It doesn't just limit connection with others, it can erode your own sense of identity, contributing to burnout, anxiety, and depression. Over time, the toll of continually playing it safe to dodge rejection can intensify feelings of burnout, imposter syndrome, and even resentment toward the people or environments that seem to demand perfection. Yet, despite these efforts, masking doesn't just take an emotional toll, it can distance you from the very connections that could offer relief. Masking often feels like an act of emotional self-defense, providing a shield from immediate judgment or rejection. The irony, though, is that this shield can also block genuine connection, because real intimacy usually hinges on authentic self-expression. Another downside of masking is that it entails being in a constant state of partial performance, never fully relaxed, always second-guessing your actions. This can cause you to lose touch with the interests and traits that truly bring you joy. That's a steep cost, and it points to the importance of finding ways to unmask strategically for our long-term well-being. So how do we move away from masking toward a more genuine self-presentation? One key is adopting a growth mindset, seeing social and emotional skills as learnable. Rather than concluding, I'm just bad at socializing, we can practice new coping or communication strategies. If you're ADHD, you might outline your talking points ahead of meetings to stay focused, yet let your enthusiasm shine through. Start unmasking in environments or with people you trust, friends, family, support groups, where the cost of being authentic is low. If you feel comfortable, share little insights about your neurodivergence. For example, I like to doodle during meetings because it helps me focus. Build in breaks, downtime, or sensory-friendly activities that allow your brain to rest. This helps you recharge and find balance between performing and being. Practice expressing your needs. If harsh lighting bothers you, ask for a lower light setting or wear tinted glasses. Advocating for your comfort reduces the need to mask your discomfort. We can't ignore that some environments, like many workplaces, still aren't fully inclusive. While our ultimate goal might be full authenticity, it's okay to gauge a situation and decide how much to unmask. Think of it as selective authenticity rather than all or nothing. Adjusting to a workplace dress code or limiting certain stims might be strategic choices, but you can still remain true to your values and keep advocating for structural changes that support neurodiversity. One of the most powerful ways to reduce masking is through narrative identity, the story you tell yourself about who you are and where you fit. If your current narrative is I must hide who I am to succeed, challenge it. Shift the narrative to I am capable and my unique traits deserve space in this world. Reflect on meaningful moments you have validated your authenticity. Reflect on meaningful moments that have validated your authenticity, like a friend who appreciated your quirky humor or a project where your hyperfocus led to an amazing outcome. These are anchors for a healthier, more self-affirming identity. As you unmask, you may encounter pushback from people who preferred the compliant version of you. It's important to set boundaries. Your well-being and autonomy matter. If a coworker criticizes your stimming in a meeting, calmly explain that it helps you concentrate. If a friend doesn't respect your need for alone time, reiterate that quiet recharge is essential to your mental health. Boundaries protect the progress you're making toward a more authentic life. I want to stress that masking isn't something we snap our fingers and stop doing overnight. It's a tool many of us developed to navigate a world that doesn't fully accept or understand neurodiversity yet. The goal isn't to judge yourself for masking, it's to explore how you can gradually reduce the cost of it and reclaim parts of your authentic self that have been sidelined. Remember, you're allowed to be a work in progress. Do you have tips for unmasking or experiences of learning to be more authentic in different settings? I'd love to continue this conversation, so leave a comment and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share so that other people can benefit from this content. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.